Hi Aries Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of Saturn going into Pisces and Pluto going into Aquarius. And these are both happening in March 2023. It's going to be an amazing month. This is your solar return as well. And it's funny because you have, it's like they're kind of advancing one sign over, both of these planets. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for over 15 years, and then it goes into Aquarius. Saturn has been in Aquarius for over 2.5 years. Now it's going into Pisces. And for you, these are the 11th and 12th houses, respectively. So you've been having Pluto in your 10th house of career, and now it's going into the 11th house. And Saturn is going into that house of Pisces, that 12th house, that house of contemplation, solitude. And I'll start with the Saturn transit. This can feel like maybe the dark night of the soul. But I want to make it clear because I do think that that's kind of fear-mongering, fear-based thinking. And I honestly believe that Saturn in the 12th house doesn't have to be bad at all. I think it can help people like Aries who are very active. You tend to be very active, and you might find it hard to sit still and meditate and have a spiritual discipline. You're very ambitious, so you can be very immersed in the world in that sense. And this can give you that discipline to explore the other side of life. Another thing about Aries is it's very extroverted, and this is a house that is very introverted. And the reason the hermit goes alone and doesn't hang with a bunch of people is because then they can be contemplative. When you're yakking it up, you're not listening to your soul. You're just running your mouth. When you're listening to other people, you're not listening to your soul. So if you're in a big group and you're all talking and having these conversations, you're listening to other people, it might feel entertaining, but it's not really touching your soul because you have your individual path. So this is why solitude is important, but there are certain signs that may find it hard to go there because they're just naturally acclimated to being with other people, being around other people. And they get their stimulation. They say extroverted people get their stimulation from other people, and introverts get drained by other people. And, being a fire sign myself, being a Sagittarian, all fire signs are supposed to be extroverted. Well, that's not true. I'm an introvert. And I'm sure that there are some of you who are naturally introverted as well. And this can be, sometimes you can see this in the chart. Your natal sun may be in the 12th house as it is. So you might have that tendency already. But that would have to be a situation where you're looking at this from your position that we sometimes have two signs in one house, and because of this, it can make a person, whatever is going on with you personally, it can make you have that need to do this. And you may, well, I was going to say you may go kicking and screaming, but that's why it's good to know about these transits so that you can be very understanding of your need to do this and the importance of it, because Saturn is an influence that is very like a strict teacher. And sometimes people have found, like maybe even like well, obviously if I'm talking about teachers, I'm talking about school, that some of their best teachers were the strictest ones because they were not just all fluff. They were really demanded something of them. And Saturn's very demanding. And the 12th house is also the house of self undoing, which means kind of like self destructive tendencies. So if Aries people have, if you, any of you have addictions, if you have some kind of behavioral pattern, sometimes with Aries, it's temper issues um, that kind of trip you up and make your life more complicated and less how you want it to be, then you will you can have an opportunity to deal with that. When somebody is not aware, the universe will bitch slap them in terms of giving them these experiences that cause them to have to face whatever it is. So you want to be as conscious as possible so that you can take the initiative, so that you're not just waiting for an event to happen because it gets messier that way. If you, an example would be, let's say that an Aries person has an addiction to, let's just say, alcohol. And they might know that they do, but they're being rebellious about it. They're like, it's my life, I can do what I want. And they have a DUI. And they have to go to some kind of, whatever they make them do. Yeah, I mean, maybe that will be the wake up call, maybe not, depending on the individual. But the point is that that's messier, and it's an outward force that's doing it, and that would also kind of rankle the average Aries person because the Aries person wants to be in the driver's seat of their own life. So that's why it's important to take that action yourself and not wait for something to force you into that, because and that's the other thing, it's much less likely to take if it's something that is not of your own doing. And Saturn doesn't like waste, it doesn't like excess. So that's another way of putting it, is that if you have this behavior that you're exhibiting that isn't adding to your life, remember too that this is the last house before a new cycle begins. So it's kind of like tying up loose ends. Does the person have anything that they need to become more disciplined about before we go into this new cycle and Saturn goes into your first house? Okay, this person has an addiction. This person has, you could even say like somebody who is always having to be in the public, like, what I was saying about being social all the time. Um, that person may have an addiction to, what would you call it, like socializing, and they're not spending enough time alone. Okay, well, how will this, actually, when Saturn was in your 11th house, that's when it's kind of weeding out people in your life, whether it's like your friends, if you belong to organizations that just aren't cutting it anymore, that just aren't doing it for you. So the other thing here that maybe is seen as the dark night of the soul is that the person has to face their demons. Now, I just talked about addictions, but it can be anything. Saturn is the lord of karma. This is the house of karma because it's the house of past lives. And sometimes people are running programs from other lifetimes, and we can see this all the time. I mean, I'm saying this about myself, all the phobias I have, and I just kind of laugh at them because I know they're kind of illogical. They're not based on trauma that I experienced in this lifetime, so I figure they must be from a past life. Um, and it's like it depends on how much they influence your life. You know, if you can function a lot of the time, and even if you have certain phobias, then it's not really that big of a deal. But some people, they have something in their life that has really held them back. And this may be the time that you have to face this because, um, everything is kind of coming together. You're going to start having eclipses in your sign in 2023. As a matter of fact, the first one is going to be in March of 2023, Aries, and you're going to have to, um, and then you're going to have the North Node there at some point in your sign, and that'll be your destiny. So things are meant to be at a certain time. So that means that you have to learn how to, um, accept that things have to change at certain times in your life that sometimes it's like you can't control everything too. And that can be something that Aries people want to do is, control how things happen. It's like, no, not all the time. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to surrender. And that's very difficult for Aries because Aries is a warrior energy. And you may be trying to, make things happen regardless. Um, Pisces is about surrender. It's very passive. And people think that passive is a bad word. It doesn't have to be. So, just a little recap, I think that for Saturn in the 12th, embracing solitude more, and that means the spiritual side of life, developing a spiritual discipline will naturally cover all those bases because you will see that not only are you doing these spiritual practices alone, but you're also, um, just naturally finding yourself more inclined to prefer that kind of lifestyle instead of just always being putting your energy in an outwards direction. And it's kind of like when a person has a junk food addiction or just kind of like, processed foods and stuff like that. And they start eating cleanly and they eat a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and they become much more appreciative of those flavors that are pure rather than kind of that old way of being. The same thing applies to a spiritual practice. Is that then it kind of refines you and it makes you less inclined to want to do those other things. And so, in terms of the Pluto influence, so Pluto has been in your 10th house of career. Hopefully, none of you have had a fall from grace, which can happen. Oh, and by the way, I should say that Pluto is going back into Capricorn after it initially goes into Aquarius because it really is slow moving and it's only going to go to 0 degrees in something minutes. It's not even going to go to 1 degree. So then it's going to go back into Capricorn. So you are going to have this, you still have to keep a high watch for your own nature to make sure that you're not backsliding into anything that is not of the highest nature for you. And I just say that because Pluto in the 10th transit can be that the person has a fall from grace. The 10th house is your public reputation, and Pluto can give you an obsession for power and success. And sometimes things come about where you can get an offer you can't refuse. So, Pluto in the 11th house is about the collective. And it's also about technology, so it can have that angle as well. And Pluto doesn't have to be the heavy in all instances. It can be healing and transformation. So it can be a very good time for you to hook up with people that are healers. And you know how people get together in a group and there's like strength in numbers with that. Like if you've ever been to any kind of spiritual workshop or mass meditation, that's what's going on, and it can, and I think it does work. And also just almost like supporting one another in that sense with your transformations. But the other thing that can happen here is like activism. Uh, this house can be like the social justice warrior house, because Aquarius, is associated with wanting an egalitarian society, and we don't have that right now. So what are you going to do about it? What does Aries tend to do about things? They tend to be a warrior. So you have Pluto in the 11th house, and the Aries person, uh, I'm speaking like specifically the Aries sun sign person. You might have a situation where you are tempted to be very radical. And the thing about it is, this is an important thing. Like, I'm not saying that any political organization is going to be bad or anything like that, but definitely make damn sure what you're getting into, because Pluto can be the underworld or something that is, totally sketched out, because it's, an infiltrator, somebody who's not who they claim to be, secret, um, kind of like, how they say the secret societies. Well, you might think that you're part of some group and you're on the surface on this group, and meanwhile, there's these other people who are operatives, and they're operating from, another perspective. And, you don't want to be somebody's useful idiot. So you have to know exactly, who you're working with and what their ultimate goal is, because they may frame it in one way, but the end result is something else. And the tactics that are used, because that can be, again, there's the surface and what's underneath the surface, and Pluto is all about that. You may feel a desire to be somebody that is the leader of some kind of a group. So you may have, it doesn't have to be political, it can be anything. And again, that can be really great if you have a desire to be of service to others, but you think that you would make a great leader. That's awesome. If you have some kind of tyrannical desires, then obviously that's coming from the ego, and that's not a high vibration. So you have to determine, like, what is the end game? Why do you want this? Why do you want this kind of feeling of being the head of something? Because we're talking about power here. And power isn't bad, but when people are seeking power over others, that could be for the wrong reasons. If you're seeking to be influential, that's a different story, because you may be inspirational. I would say inspirational. The 11th house can be the internet, because it's technology. And if you notice, they call content creators on YouTube influencers, which I absolutely despise that term, because some people may really like that. Yeah, I'm an influencer, because it appeals to their ego. Their ego wants to be in power. They want to be able to control other people, um, to think like them, to be like them. But anybody who's really well balanced will be very leery of that kind of characterization or motivation, because why would we want to? That's like trying to have control over another person. Why would somebody need that, let alone want it? So that can show you if you're on the wrong track, if you really like think about it. Now, on the other hand, being inspirational, yes. And Pluto, if you're undergoing a major transformation, um, Aries, and you might be because you have Neptune in that 12th house, and now Saturn is joining it. And so that can be very good for spiritual endeavors. It might be kind of strange because they're so different, those two planets, but they might, who knows, they might actually team up and help you to really advance spiritually. And you want to share your journey with other people. Maybe online you're sharing your journey and you end up inspiring other people. The other thing that the 11th house can be are your hopes and wishes. And these may be changing. You may be um, growing, and therefore your desires are changing. And this is great too because sometimes we think we want certain things and then we realize that we have changed and those are no longer important to us. That's why I always question when people have this long, whatchamacallit, like 5 year plan, 10 year plan. Like, that's implying that you will never change in those years and you don't want the same things. And we can't neglect to talk about money because Pluto can be about big money. And the 11th house is the house of gains. So this is coming from your career, your business. This could be a very lucrative time for you financially in a way that maybe you didn't expect it to be. Um, and perhaps you really up your internet game and that contributes to it. Who knows? I'm just kind of trying to tie it all together. Might even be through spiritual practices that you really align yourself even more and you're able to do what you do from a higher level, and that is reflected in your material prosperity. So that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that that resonated. And this is a general reading. So, I just was talking about Pluto, for example. Pluto's going into Aquarius on March 23rd. That doesn't mean in your chart it's going to do that. And if you're listening for your sun in Aries, your rising sign can be totally different. And actually, your natal chart that deals with rising signs and things like that, that is what is used for predictive purposes a lot of the times, because of it reflecting your cosmic blueprint, and so all of the events in your life, how it transpires from the moment you were born. So um, if you would like to explore this further, like in terms of your when these transits are happening and other transits, because you're going to have like a major year in 2023, and also your natal chart analysis. I have a package deal called a deep dive reading, which goes into both of these areas. It's an hour of natal chart interpretation and an hour of transits for the upcoming 12 months. And I have other readings as well. You can find out more information at rainamoonastrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.